challenging childhood one you have had, that means you want to make use of every opportunity you get.
Look back from now, your college years or school years, you had curiosity for science already, or you discovered it as you went through your years of schools or college?
So I started my life in a very small village in India. I come from a farming family. And in my village there was no high school. So then my father wanted me to study. I lived with my maths teacher in a neighboring village for 3 years in order to be able to finish my high school. So I tell people that nanotechnology is engineering at the atomic and molecular scale. Say for example, if you take a Lego blocks, and then using Lego blocks you can make whatever structure you want. So in nanotechnology what we're doing is, instead of using Lego blocks, we're using atoms and molecules to create whatever the structure you want to have, and study their properties and use their properties to be able to make them to be a better devices, for example. Okay. I think government has a very important role to play in this one. Mm-hmm. Again, in the US, for example, there is something called SBIR program, Small Business Innovation Research Program. Mm-hmm. Every funding agency in US need to spend 3% of their budget to really support small businesses. Okay. And then this SBIR program allows you to be able to continue to develop the products to a level where you are ready for the venture capitalists.
Right.
But whereas in Australia, we go to the venture capitalists too soon. But venture capitalists don't have the patience.
Right.
So that means that's why lots of startup companies fail. So I'm truly grateful to two of my high school teachers, my maths teacher and my English and social studies teacher. And they both made a huge difference in my life. Without their help during my high school, probably I'll be plowing the fields in India today.
Jagadish, thank you for being with me. I'm quite looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks, Amit, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be with you.
We know about your work, but when I was researching more about you, I realized that you wear multiple hats: physicist, engineer, mentor, teacher, and philanthropist as well. Tell me a bit about what do you enjoy doing all of those roles, or do you find sort of happiness or satisfaction in a specific one?
So thanks, Amit. And then I do enjoy what I do, and of course, doing my science and research is my passion. And while doing my science and research, and then the most enjoyable part for me is making the difference in other people's lives, particularly in terms of opening the doors for the next generation, whether it is students or postdocs, and seeing their success makes me very happy. So that's a pleasure of being a professor. One of the good things in life is that seeing young people and so seeing their success and makes me very happy. Yeah. So that's the enjoyable part of my life. If you ask me, what's the most enjoyable part of your life is, of course, I enjoy my research, I like my science, but the most enjoyable part is seeing the bright young people and seeing they achieving their goals and then dreams, and helping in a small way to make sure that they achieve their dreams and goals.
Yeah. And how did you when you look back from now your work, your life, how did you get here? So did you over your college years or school years, you had curiosity for science already, or you discovered it as you went through your years of schools or college?
So I started my life in a very small village in India, and I studied in front of a kerosene lamp till I finished my year 7. And in my village there was no high school. So then my father wanted me to study, and he asked many of my relatives whether they are willing to host me for my high school period. And that none of the relatives came forward to host me for 3 years. Right. It's a lot of responsibility to host a 14-and-a-half-year-old boy for 3 years, and it's a responsibility for them.
Yeah.
He happened to mention this one to my maths teacher in a neighboring village, and then he happened to be his classmate in his high school. And my father was also a teacher, and then a primary school teacher, and then later on he gone back to agriculture, and that's what I come from a farming family.
Right.
So then my maths teacher said, why don't you ask him to come and stay with us? So I lived with my maths teacher in a neighboring village for 3 years in order to be able to finish my high school.
Right.
So I'm truly grateful to two of my high school teachers, my maths teacher and my English and social studies teacher. And they both made a huge difference in my life. Without their help during my high school, probably I'll be plowing the fields in India today.
Right.
So really, that's where I think you can also see that, how the education can really uplift people's lives. And I have experienced that one firsthand. Then I started living on my own in year 11 and 12. And but because suddenly I got all the freedom I could get, and so then living in a town and you're getting your monthly allowance or so, I was just a teenager.
Yeah.
And so then the challenge is that then I was just hanging around with my friends and going to movies and all these things. I didn't do very well in my year 12. Till my year 10, I used to be one of the top students in the class. But then because of these distractions, I didn't do very well.
Mm-hmm.
So my teachers and then my parents expected me to go into engineering.
Right.
In those days in India, that when you're good in maths, you're expected to be an engineer.
Yeah.
And then when you're good in biology, you're expected to be a doctor. I suppose that still such sort of mentality is still there.
It is there.
And mainly because of the fact that the parents want you to be successful in life. And then those are the two areas where you can find easily jobs. And so then I could not get into engineering. In those days also, the combined state of Andhra Pradesh, and we only had about 5 engineering colleges or so, which used to be extremely competitive.
Oh, in the whole state.
In the whole state.
Yeah.
And when at that time Andhra Pradesh and Telangana together.
Right.
And so then I could not get engineering, and then I'd gone off and gone studying physics, because I always liked maths and physics.
Right.
So then it gave me the opportunity to go and pursue maths and physics. And so then I did my bachelor's degree in physics. And then I moved to Andhra University and in Visakhapatnam, did my MSc Tech Applied Physics Electronics.
Mm-hmm.
So I again, initially I was busy with the student union politics or so in Andhra University and trying to help people and basically, helping people to get scholarships or hostel seats or one issue or the other. Mm-hmm. Then I contested for elections in the final year of my MSc Tech, a 3-year master's degree.
Okay.
And then again, I failed to get elected to that particular the college presidency.
Right.
So then I gave up all the politics and then fully focused on my studies. So in the final year, I did very well. Mm-hmm. And then again, I came among the top 3 in the class. And so then I started looking for jobs. That's normal because generally, whether you finish your Bachelor of Engineering or Master's degree and look for jobs, that used to be the normal case in the, people, for those of us, those who came from small villages.
Yeah.
So then I was looking for jobs and I used to apply for physics jobs, and they used to say that you're not a physicist because you didn't do pure physics, MSc pure physics as your master's degree. You did applied physics electronics.
Right.
So then I used to apply for electronics jobs, and they used to say that none of your degrees are engineering. You're not an electronics engineer.
Right.
So then I was in a limbo land, and then I had to see that what can I do. So then I started applying for MTech programs in IITs, Indian Institute of Technologies in various parts of the country. And, I was in Delhi. And I happened to visit after my interviews at IIT Delhi to Delhi University. There I met my friend Srinivas, K. Srinivas. So he was there working as a research assistant, and then he told me he's applying for MPhil program in Delhi University. So then, not knowing whether I will get into IITs or not, and then I applied for MPhil program in Delhi University, and then I got admission into MPhil program. So then I did my MPhil and PhD degrees at Delhi University in semiconducting thin films also. Mm-hmm. So then after finishing these things, and then obviously I wanted to go overseas to gain some international experience as a postdoctoral fellow.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Delhi University started bachelor's degree in electronics.
Oh.
So they were looking for people with electronics background.
Right.
So one of my friends, Dr. V. Chandrasekhar Rao, he has asked that, we're starting electronics degree in Sri Venkateswara College. We're looking for some lecturers. Are you interested in becoming a lecturer? So since I'm finishing my PhD, and then I said, not knowing what's going to happen in the future, I might as well apply for this job. I got that job. And I taught there at Sri Venkateswara College for about 3 years. in undergraduate students in electronics and setting up of the labs and other things. It's very much enjoyable part of my life at that time.
Right.
And working with students and others. And then though the students whom I only taught in 1985 to 88, and then those students still keep in touch with me.
Wonderful.
So that's a really wonderful experience of interacting with students. So like, students are like your own academic children. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So then I always feel that's like, they are part of my global family sort of thing.
Right.
But then still I was very keen on going overseas and gain some experience.
This was you wanted to go overseas because the kind of education you needed or experience you needed in India was limited, or there wasn't a specific course that you wanted to teach or learn. What was the situation at that point?
So at that time, of course, India was really, at that time challenge. Indian economy. And it's a different days in the 80s or so, quite different. Now, of course, India is a booming economy and then it becoming a tech powerhouse or so.
Yeah.
But the situation at that time is quite different.
It's different.
But generally also you want to gain some new skills.
Right.
And then it's natural for once somebody finishes their PhD to go and gain some new experience and also live in overseas countries and gain new skills and also learn about also how in other parts of the world people are doing research or so.
Mm-hmm.
So then I used to apply for postdoctoral fellowships. And in those days, again, still there were no computers and there were no emails or so. And then the magazines like Physics Today and IEEE Spectrum, they used to get by C-mail 5 months or 6 months late.
Wow.
To the library.
Yeah.
So I used to go every weekend to the library and see if any of the magazines have come.
Yeah.
And then, in the back of these magazines, they used to have advertisements for various positions.
I see.
So then I used to apply for these positions. In those days, again, there was no email. That means you have to physically mail your CV to these places. They never used to give deadlines. See, problem is at that time we were not aware of any information.
Right.
And in the process, there's no deadline and there's an advertisement there. You thought, okay, there's a position there. Let me apply for these ones.
Mm-hmm.
So over a 3-year period, I was getting left, right, center. There are a lot of rejection letters.
Wow.
And so I had more than 300 rejection letters. In those days, I used to joke about it. Name a university, I got a rejection letter. So, because, see, of course, it's frustrating that you're not able to get what you want to get.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how to really change that one and then is to really make it as more of a humorous thing rather than feeling too miserable about the situation which you have, because you're not going to change that one anyway. So.
Right.
So it so happened again, Srinivas, my friend who happened to did my MPhil and PhD in Delhi University with us, he happened to go to Queen's University in Canada.
Okay.
So then he was returning back to Delhi to do his thesis defense. And then I happened to mention to him, I'm looking for postdoctoral fellowships and I'm not able to get any. Then he said, why don't you write to Professor David Atherton in Queen's University? He seemed to like people from Delhi, but only thing is that he doesn't work in semiconductors, he works in magnetics.
Okay.
And but then I felt that, okay, nobody's giving me a job in semiconductors. I might as well write to this gentleman and then see what's going to happen. So then I wrote this letter, and then I got a letter back from him 2 months later saying that he's applying for funding, and if they get funding, and they'll let me know. After another 4 months, and I got an offer letter to go to Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, in Canada, to work as a postdoctoral fellow in magnetics, and with the possibility of extension for 1 more year. So that's how I arrived in Canada, Queen's University, in 1988. And then, of course, I didn't know anything about magnetism because all my research was in semiconductors. And only magnetism I knew was in my bachelor's degree. I did electricity magnetism course. That's the only magnetism I knew.
Right.
But at the same time, when you do research, you learn about how to identify knowledge gaps by doing literature survey, and you know how to do research and how to solve problems and do the data analysis, critical thinking skills, analytical skills, and writing skills and presentation skills. You can apply those skills anywhere, whatever you choose to be.
Right.
So fortunately, he asked me to set up a new experiment in the lab. Then I had gone and then did literature survey, identified what other type of equipment people are really using this one, and I ordered for equipment and set up the lab. and then started producing results to write it. By the time I was finishing 1 year, and I had enough results to write a paper.
Right.
I was working 7 days a week, 13-hour days, because I was alone.
Right.
And also, Professor Atherton gave me an opportunity. I want to prove to him he didn't make a mistake of choosing somebody not in his field.
Right.
And he gave me the opportunity. And so then I wanted to prove to him that I think, at least his choice is a good one.
Right.
So then I was working. And so by the time I was finishing 2 years, and I had about 10 journal papers.
In 2 years?
2 years.
Wow.
And so then I was getting invitations to give invited talks from magnetics conferences. So then I realized that whatever the work which we are doing is having an impact.
Yeah.
So there was another professor in the same department, Professor Jim Witten. And so he knew that I'm a semiconductor person working in magnetism. And one day he came and asked me, Jim Williams is starting a electronic materials engineering department at the ANU. He's looking for some good people. Would you like to go to Australia? I said, Jim, I'm enjoying my work in magnetism, but at the same time, I would like to go back to semiconductors if I get an opportunity. Then I gave my CV to Jim Witten. He faxed my CV to Jim Williams. Then for 6 months or so, I didn't hear anything from him. One fine morning, I got a fax. And then saying that, are you still interested in coming to Australia? We just got some funding, and we are happy to offer a 2-year position. So then I wrote back saying that, yes, I'm interested in coming, but at the same time, but at the moment, meanwhile, my wife, she was finishing her PhD, Vidya, in botany department in Delhi University. She finished her PhD and had gone back home and got married. She came and joined me. She was pregnant.
Right.
Said, we'll come to Australia after our baby's arrival.
Right.
So that's how I came to ANU with a 2-month-old baby, along with my wife Vidya, and with a 2-year contract. And in 1990 July, I never imagined that I'll be living in Australia for 35 years. And I just thought that I'll gain some new experience, and I'll go back to India, and I'll continue my work in India or so.
Yeah.
But then opportunities arose in Australia. ANU is a great university, Canberra is a great city to live, and Australia is a great country to live.
Yeah.
And then when they offered me a permanent position, and then I felt that it's time for me to stay back. And also that I was sponsored for a permanent resident visa as well.
Yeah.
So that's how I stayed back in Australia, and then the rest is history.
Yeah. I want to unpack your sort of journey a little bit more, and then get some learning out of it. So you know how you said that you were getting multiple rejections because you were from a different field of study, but then later on, having experience in semiconductors, but being able to publish 10 papers in 2 years in magnetism, how did that happen? So in most cases, you see if someone is a sort of a specialist in a stream of physics, right? Most often you would see that the research that they go on to do, or the interest that they have, is slightly different than what they studied, right? Do you think being from a different field of specialization sometimes is an advantage, or one needs to learn over time how to identify their skills well enough that it can be applied in most sort of similar fields?
Yeah, the thing is, again, one need to make use of the opportunities one gets,
right,
and then be open-minded in terms of learning new skills. Because sometimes, you might have done your PhD in one field. It doesn't matter that, then doesn't mean that you will get all the opportunities in the same field. But the generic skills you gain during your PhD can be applied to anything you choose to be.
Yeah.
I took it as a challenge, and also that opportunity to learn something new. And again, it's a lifelong learning process is an important thing in life.
Yeah.
But by working in magnetism and then be able to prove myself, that gave me the self-confidence that I can do anything. And that really opened a lot of doors for me. Even to just when I came to ANU, and then they were setting up something called MOCVD, metal organic chemical vapor deposition, a new technique which was coming up at that time. It's a $2 million piece of equipment brought to install at the ANU.
At that time?
At that time.
Okay.
And then they had a postdoctoral fellow who came from University of Utah, who is an expert in that particular technique. But then he was not able to produce any high quality results, which Professor Jim Williams was expecting. So I offered myself, saying that, like, Jim, I don't know anything about MOCVD, but being a semiconductor guy, I proved myself in magnetism. If you want me to give it a go, I'll give it a go in MOCVD. So then he said, why don't you spend half your time in MOCVD and half your time on electrical measurements or so.
Okay.
Within 3 months, we produced good results.
Okay.
So then Jim Williams said that you take over. So that's how, means one need to really be willing to give it a go.
Right.
And again, make use of the opportunities around you to be able to make progress in life.
But I'm sure it's not just willing to give it a go. Of course, that is the case, but there must be something more detailed, more technical that you did, or one needs to do in sort of giving things a go, right? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, the self-confidence is very important in life.
Yeah.
If you do not have self-confidence, then there may be a lot of opportunities. You're not able to see them as opportunities. You may look at them as challenges.
Right.
So that is why, that I can do, sort of a can-do attitude is very important in life. Having come from a small village and, you go through lots of challenges.
Yeah.
As I told you that I studied in front of kerosene lamp. Even my father migrated to even a more remote place. In the entire village, there was no electricity. Even during my PhD, and I used to travel back from Delhi to a place called Khammam, 24 hours by train, and then take a bus for 2 hours, and then a place called Enkuru, and then I used to walk 5 miles, this small place called Arikailapadu.
Right.
So this in a small place, that means, then again, if there's rain or anything, then you have to walk bare feet because you cannot wear shoes, it's a mud roads or so. So you learn from your experience that, means you need to give it a go. And so that sort of, means a challenging childhood one you have had. That means you want to make use of every opportunity you get to the fullest extent, because you may not get another opportunity. Right. So that is why that right attitude is very important in life. That positive attitude and can-do attitude is very important in life.
Yeah.
Of course, we all go through some challenging times. I'm not saying that when I was having 300 rejection letters, I was a happy person.
Yeah.
It's a frustrating time. But at the same time, one need to look at it and say, what can I do? What can I do? So again, talking to people always helps as well. And whenever you got some problems, by sharing your problems with your colleagues and friends, and you never know what suggestion, they may give you, sort of thing. For example, Delhi, when I was visiting IIT Delhi, if I would have not gone to University of Delhi just as a visit, I would have not had a chance to meet my friend. Then I would have probably not applied for MPhil program and other things. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
Again, when I would have not talking to Professor Jim Witten at the Queen's University, and then I would have not even known that, he would have not even known that I'm a semiconductor person working in magnetism. Sort of thing. So that's why the people skills are also becomes very important. Being part of the community, part of the network also plays an important role, so that they may suggest some things and you can at least look at it and then see whether that's of interest to you or not. And then when, again, when you see that one, when there's an opportunity, should I take this one up? Or otherwise be complacent and then see too comfortable and then do nothing. In the process, the road may be blocked. Yeah. So that is why it is very important to make sure that, one need to give it a go.
Right.
Of course, we win some and we lose some.
Of course.
And that's part of life. And if we're afraid of failure, we can never be successful in life. In fact, these days I give a talk called Failures Are Pathway to Success.
Okay.
Sharing my own failures in life with the hope that will inspire, young people, those who are going through challenging times, that they can see that, one can, go through some difficult times and fail sometimes, but still one can achieve everything you set out yourself to be.
Yeah, yeah. And also your challenges that you go through early on, they increase your resilience.
Absolutely.
Quite a lot.
Absolutely. Right? The persistence and perseverance is very important in life, and resilience is very important in life. And sometimes we call it as grit.
Grit, yes.
Grit is essentially your passion for something plus resilience.
Very interesting.
The combination of those two really make a big difference in life.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. I was talking to a VC a few weeks back who invests in startups, particularly AI startups. And we were discussing what do VCs see in a new startup who's asking for funding, right? and he said that, of course, still it's a great idea, wonderful, right? But it's still about the person, the founders, the people. And when I asked him what you see in people, his first answer was grit, right? That it's grit that makes an idea become successful through a person, right? So I completely sort of agree with that.
No, I completely agree with you, Amit. It's people.
Yeah.
I always tell people also that I got lots of equipment, but equipment doesn't do research. It's the people do research.
People do
Of course, you need to provide the right kind of opportunities and right kind of equipment to do research, but then it's ultimately the people and their passion and their drive will make the difference. And in fact, I also sometimes tell people, you may have got brilliant ideas, but ultimately your team will determine those ideas are good or not so good.
Right.
And then if you happen to have sort of, a good student, may make a lousy idea as a great idea, and a not so good student make a great idea as a lousy idea. So that's why your team is very important in life. I've been very fortunate. I got a wonderful students and postdoctoral fellows and young colleagues, which I had the pleasure of working with.
Yeah.
And then that's, working as a part of a team and collaboration and cooperation is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And again, when you talk about startups, in fact, I started the company along with Jim Williams, Acton Lasers, in 1999 to commercialize some of our laser technology, which was a world record output power which we have got.
Yeah.
These lasers were very much in demand in optical fiber communications. And so then I and Jim have spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, 1 week in Silicon Valley, 1 week in Canberra or so.
Yeah.
And so we were able to get $20 million of funding, and then we were going through due diligence process. And meanwhile, Nortel Networks announced job cuts. Our investors got cold feet and pulled out. After 18 months of our hard work and my team's hard work, and there was nothing to show, and ultimately we had to close the company because of the fact that the tech market collapsed into 2000.
Right.
So what I've learned from that process is that, you give it a go and then try, and sometimes, the market may shift from you very quickly. So that's why I always tell my young colleagues, and particularly students or so, when they want to go about and do something, tell them, go and give it a go. Well, even if something fails, you learn a lot from that process. I've learned about how to, structure a company, how to raise funding, and what are the requirements. And again, as a person of a science and technology person, you think that the science and technology is the only thing which is most important in a company.
It's everything.
But reality is so different.
Yes.
You need to have the right kind of team and people with the good, business skills, and also good marketing skills, good sales skills, good finance skills, and also people, those who got experience in production,
right? How
to translate the lab things which you have done, and again, trying to productize something which you have done in the lab to really make it a real world is a lot of hard work involved.
It is, yeah.
So it's been a great experience for me. So I have no regret from that point of view.
Yeah.
But again, people whom you work with make all the difference. Most interestingly, when you talk to venture capitalists, and they also want to see that whenever you say that you want to, why you're interested in doing this, what you want to do with this one, startup, said, oh, well, I want to see my technology to be useful for people. That's the wrong answer. So you have to say that, I want to make a lot of money sort of thing as well. Because venture capitalists also want to see a quick, of course, I'm sure that they want to see, technology development or so, but most important thing from their perspective is how can you really make 3 or 4 times of their investment in 3-4 years or so. So that's a quite different mindset. Yeah. So that's why we've learned from the beginning that one need to really make sure that what you're talking when you're talking to venture capitalists or so sort of thing. Again, in other words, you need to understand what is the motivation of your audience, and you appropriately respond to that as well. So it's a wonderful experience, and again, I think again, team makes a big difference, and then again, passion and the drive. Any individual, even though you may have a lot of opportunities when people don't have the drive and passion, and they may not see those opportunities, and then they may not achieve much.
Right.
So that is why I always tell people, give it a go. Whenever opportunity comes, you never know what that can lead to.
Yeah.
And I also tell people, don't worry about whether you worked on a solar cell or a laser or a sensor, a detector or one thing or the other. that's all irrelevant what you've done during your PhD. But keep in mind your general skills which you gain, analytical skills, problem-solving skills, working as part of a team, persistence and perseverance, be able to work on a project for 3-4 years, and be able to write well into a cohesive report, and writing papers and presentations at conferences and all these things. These generic skills you can apply anything you choose to be.
Right.
So that's why it is very important people don't really confine themselves. So I've done my PhD in this area, and that's the only thing I know.
Yeah.
So that's not a good position to be in. One need to be really open-minded and willing to learn new things, and then you can take some risks. And you never know what to really see. When I was leaving Canada and gone to Canada, I never know what's going to visit to Canada for 2 years will take me to.
Yeah.
There were some companies were asking me, well, am I interested in, joining them?
Yeah.
Because the magnetic techniques which we were using at that time were developing magnetic techniques to detect corrosion in oil and gas pipelines.
Oh, I see.
Okay, it's a very applied work. So that's why industry people are interested. But then for me, I think, I was more interested in research and academia or so. And that's why I chose to come to Australia, to ANU. Yeah. And again, but interestingly, that when we did the company, and when, of course, we had closed down the company, then also I reflected on what's the most enjoyable part for me. And then I realized that being an academic, being a researcher, and mentoring young people, seeing their success is the most enjoyable part for me. So that really allowed me to be able to reflect on myself. What really makes me happy. Yeah. So that's why I stayed back in academia. And then, of course, I still believe in transfer of technologies and, we got, US patents or so, we transfer technology to companies or so. Yeah. But still, I would like to be in academia and then enable the technology to really make the difference to the world and encourage my students and postdocs to go and pursue as research, the industry. And again, some of my students and postdocs are working in industries, and some of them started multiple companies or so. Yeah. So again, I think it's important to encourage young people to pursue various aspects of opportunities. It could be some people are working in government, some are in academia, including places like Cambridge and Oxford and Manchester and other places. Some of them are in the national labs in Sandia National Labs and Jet Propulsion Lab and the Lawrence Livermore National Lab. Some of them are in the universities. Right. I think you need to encourage people to pursue whatever opportunities are there.
Yeah, yeah. When you Acton lasers is So when you look at your experience from your startup at that time, so pretty much what you're trying to do is from a lab setup, you're getting to a product, and then how to get that product in the market to sell in the market, right? Yeah. When you look at your experience at that time and today, when in the same situation, when let's say someone in a lab finds himself or herself in the same situation, that I have a good sort of idea which is working and could translate into a product which could either help sort of society or get a VC a lot of money, right? Do you see differences now in terms of opportunities that exist now and used to be earlier? Are there major differences you see, or the story is sort of similar?
So thanks, Amit. And there's a big differences I can see. But at that time, the venture capitalists in Australia, they didn't know anything about the hardware side of things, deep technologies. They were only investing in most of the software companies or so.
I see. So VCs you approached were Australian VCs.
Australian VCs. Right. And also we were working with the US VCs as well, Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley. They were excited about our technology, but they said, Australia is so far away. And then if it would have been within the 30-mile radius of our offices, would have really funded you. Yeah. But we don't know anything about what goes on in Australia. In fact, we introduced some of the Australian VCs to the American VCs. And then those American VCs shook their head and said that these guys don't know what they're talking about. Oh. They want to have the same returns as Silicon Valley VCs, but they didn't want to take any risk.
I see. Australian
at that time, Australian VCs at that time. Right. So that's sort of because of the fact that they didn't have any understanding of what are the challenges in deep tech, because they were always, the funding, some software company or the other, some app or the other sort of thing. It's a quite different world. Yeah. But most interestingly, even in the universities, and didn't know how to go about doing startup companies and all these things at that time. Yeah. And in fact, our deputy vice chancellor at that time said that, we don't want you to have headlines in the newspapers saying that, you made more money than they knew. This is a very sort of thing, Otherwise, some of the comments like, we don't want to dilute. Dilution is a good thing. Because company is growing, everybody dilutes, but the pie is growing. And your percentage may be less, but still the pie is big. That means you're still making more money. But he didn't have any understanding of that one.
Right.
So it was very interesting time at that time. And again, so the people's understanding of deep technology and particularly hardware-based technologies was very limited.
At that time.
And universities were also very conservative at that time as well. And in fact, when we told our deputy vice chancellor, then we had to, our investors pulled out and we had to close the company, and he felt relieved that he didn't have to make a decision. What's the split between the investors, the inventors, and then the university and these sorts of issues, sort of.
So the university at that time used to have a translation office?
Yes, we used to have something called ANU Tech.
Yeah.
But their knowledge has not also been that significant. In fact, mostly they were acting like postmen and taking our patent applications to passing on to the patent lawyers.
Right.
Then I told them that, look, and then they wanted to have 20% share from the inventor's side, not from the university side, though they are part of the university.
Okay.
So that's where I had to tell them that, look, I can do the same posting. You're not bringing any value to me. And so then I ended up, in fact, doing on my own. And we got patents and other things. We directly worked with patent lawyers or so. That worked out well from that point of view, sort of thing. But things have changed.
Okay.
And partly because of the fact also government is also are expecting the universities to see the impact of their research. So that's what they're looking at as well. So that means commercialization of technologies and other things is when universities are also now open-minded. And now in the ANU Physics, for example, there are multiple startup companies, 6 or 7 of them. And then, in fact, our former director, Professor Tim Senden, he started a company along with his colleagues, Lithicon, and they managed to really sell it for $70 million or so. That means people could see some examples of where technologies can be translated and then make it commercially successful. And the mindset also has changed in the universities as well. So there's a big change has taken place since that time to now. But also now the venture capitalists in Australia also, they understand much more of the deep technology than 25 years back or so.
So they're open to taking more risks as compared to earlier?
Yes. I think there's a big learning process now. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And how is that? So that has come from looking overseas. So when VCs here have seen how VCs operate in the US or Europe, have we learned from them, or it's a gradual process that sort of has...
It's possibly a combination of two.
Combination.
And I think people get more exposure to the deep technologies or so in US and other things. And then also some of the people from those got expatriate Australians returned back to Australia, whether they worked for Microsoft or Google or these things, and they also started investing in startup companies in Australia as well. So the combination of these things really made a big difference.
So you think then that's on track? So in the sense, if let's say there's a lab in Australia, anywhere in Australia, wants to get to a product stage, do you have any thoughts on what we can include or do better in the system that'll help or 10x the process? So but at that time also, what happened was also that we didn't have any facilities in Australia which has the capacity to scale these things up, scale the devices. In the lab, I can do 3 or 4 devices. Right.
When a customer wants 20 devices to test, we didn't have the capacity to be able to do that.
So you mean manufacturing?
Manufacturing to the large numbers sort of thing.
Right.
Because you're using your students to make 2 or 3 lasers, but not 20 or 30 sort of thing. But good news is that since that time, Australian government has started this program called NCRIS program, National Collaborative Research Strategy.
Right.
And so then that allowed us to be able to create a wide variety of facilities now. Say, for example, in my own area, Australian National Fabrication Facility, which I happen to serve on the board now. And then I served as the ACT Node Director before joining the board. And then we had now much better facilities, which are multi-user facilities, accessible facilities or so. We would have had those sorts of facilities at that time, probably didn't have to go and ask venture capitalists really put $20 million to establish a fab.
Right.
Because basically venture capitalists don't like to put money on buildings and bricks and mortar
Right.
and then equipment. They want to put money on people. Because that's why I think if you got the facilities which are accessible, my advice would be make use of any facilities which you can leverage and make use of them to be able to take to the next step before you go for a bigger amount of funds, to be able to establish your own dedicated fab for your purposes or so.
Yeah.
That means you are de-risking some of the early aspects of the research that can help as well.
Right. So you think that now we have central facilities where we can, a lab or someone with the idea can actually build their an MVP, and then from there get it to a VC, right?
Yeah.
That okay, look, this is operational.
Yeah.
We can take it to the next stage.
Yeah.
So it's become easier.
It's easier than 25 years back for sure.
Right.
But the thing is also that we still need to, I think government has a very important role to play in this one. Again, in the US, for example, there is something called SBIR program, Small Business Innovation Research Program. Every funding agency in US need to spend 3% of their budget to really support small businesses.
Okay.
So if I'm in a US university, what I would do is that if my student produce some particular device, and I go out and take 2-year leave and go and start a company along with my student, and then we try to use these SBIR funding programs to be able to take to the next step or so, and then this SBIR program allows you to be able to continue to develop the products to a level where you are ready for the venture capitalists.
Right.
But whereas in Australia, we go to the venture capitalists too soon. But venture capitalists don't have the patience.
Right.
So that means that's why lots of startup companies fail. So that is why it is important to have government programs, irrespective of who is in the government. Because again, this program, SBIR program, is going on for 4 decades or so in US.
Okay.
Irrespective of whether you got Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah.
In the same way, we need to have a program here, which is means a multilateral or bilateral program and bipartisan program, which says that we want to really translate our resource-based economy to knowledge-based economy. If we want to do that, it will take about 20 years or so. So that means we need to start investing now. We need to create programs which we all agree we don't have to change every time government changes. This program rules change the same, stays the same. So that allows then people to be able to know which program to apply for, and then be able to take it to the next level and next level,
Yeah.
so that you're not rushing to go to the venture capitalists too soon.
Right.
Venture capitalists don't have patience. They don't care about your technology. They are after, their job is to make quick money, and that's how they're means take bets on means if you want to call it as fast failure. And then out of 10 companies they invest, means 8 of them fail and 2 of them really work out. And those 2 of them will make much more money than what they totally invested, and that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And but that's why I think means going too early to the venture capitalists is not a very smart thing. But also you're diluting yourself too much as well.
Initially.
And in the process initially, which is also not a good thing.
Yeah.
That means you lose control of your company. In the process, you may struggle to be able to have that means then somebody else is controlling everything, and then it becomes very challenging to make it successful as well.
Yeah.
Having said that, we need to founders sometimes also get too wedded to their technology, and people need to be open-minded and say that they cannot do everything.
Yeah.
They need to really work with other people, make sure that listen to other people. Sometimes you may start off with something. You thought that this particular technology is going to benefit a particular industry sector or a particular product area, but then market may be telling you something different. So then you need to listen to the market.
Yeah.
You do not need to have a Nobel Prize winning idea to make something successful in the marketplace. The important thing is to identify where the market gaps are and be able to come up with a solution to those the market gaps which you've identified, and as efficiently, as quickly as possible in order to make the company to be successful.
Yeah.
Sometimes you may get a great technology, but if the market suddenly changes, the technology will not see the light of the day. So that's why it is very important to be being diligent and then also efficient in terms of being able to productize as quickly as possible becomes important as well. That's why the collaboration and cooperation, working with other companies and other things becomes important as well.
Yeah.
And why some companies are successful in Silicon Valley, not in other places? Because they do not have to do everything on their own. Because there are so many companies can do multiple things. Just to give my own example of lasers, we needed to learn how to really do the heat sinking to be able to remove the heat from the device, and we need to be able to do this the wire bonding, and also be able to thermally, optically, electrically, mechanically, all need to be right. How to couple the light from the laser to an optical fiber, it's a packaging technology. And then multiple things you need to do this one. But if you go to US, they got different companies are specialized in different things.
Right. So each.
That means you're able to really leverage on those things, be able to productize things some very quickly. But whereas in Australia at that time at least, we had to do everything on our own. That means you're learning on the job. That means it will take longer to productize some things.
Right.
That means you may miss the opportunity, and then the opportunity may be gone very quickly from you. So that's why it is very important to collaborate and cooperate, leverage whatever the opportunities are there, to be able to fast track these things.
Yeah. But but you've built helped sort of build a lot of human products. A lot of people out of your lab have graduated. You've run a big sort of lab over how many years now? 30, 35 years almost.
Yeah.
Right. If you getting back in sort of your work itself. If you were to explain your work, particularly, let's start with nanotech, right? Your neighbor asks you, what do you do, right? And you're trying to explain nanotechnology to him, right, or her, in a very simple language. What is nanotechnology?
So I tell people that nanotechnology is engineering at the atomic and molecular scale. Say, for example, if you take Lego blocks, and then using Lego blocks, you can make whatever structure you want. So in nanotechnology, what we're doing is instead of using Lego blocks, we're using atoms and molecules to create whatever the structure you want to have and study their properties and use their properties to be able to make them to be better devices, for example.
Okay.
So just what is so special about nanotechnology? So basically, you can really make any shapes, nanostructures you want to have. For example, if you want to make the nanoparticles, or nano rods, or nano wires, or nano tubes, and all these things are engineering the atomic structures to make sure that you're able to make those particular shapes.
Right.
Of nanostructures.
Okay.
So what is so special about them? When you go to the nanoscale, the material properties change.
Okay.
The classical physics fails, and you get into quantum physics. So you want to make use of the quantum physics to be able to improve the performance of any device which you look at. For example, if you look at transistors, nowadays we are able to make transistors with 2 nanometer dimensions. So 2 nanometers is about few tens of atoms. Okay.
Yeah.
So that means you really are talking about so atomic scale engineering. You're able to do. Why? What is so important about a 2 nanometer transistor? Smaller the transistor, you can pack more devices. That means for example, if you want to have memory devices, you can be able to make more transistors. That means you can have a much more high density memory available for you. For example,
Right.
if you want to record movies on your USB stick or whatever you got, and then you'll be able to do that one because of the fact that you got billions of transistors there. Again, the smaller the transistor, faster you can switch on and off. Right. If you want to make fast transistors, again, you go into nanoscale, makes a big difference.
Right.
So that is why we want to make use of nanotechnology. And another thing which happens when you go to nanoscale is number of atoms on the surface becomes quite significant numbers with respect to number of atoms which are in a solid, for example. If I take a nanoparticle, because if I'm taking about a 2 nanometer diameter nanoparticle, the number of atoms which are on the surface are quite significant. That means they got a broken bonds they want to attach to something. And for example, for sensing applications or so, catalysis applications, these nanostructures really been much more efficient than in the bulk form which you are really dealing with in the past.
Okay.
So that is why nanotechnology is basically, people ask me, where are the nanotechnology companies? You're working in nanotechnology for the last 25 years. And I say that they're not called as nanotechnology companies. Nanotechnology is used in all the industries which we have. Electronics, we're already using nanotechnology. In the medical devices, we are for sensors or so, we're able to really use nanotechnology. In energy devices, we're using nanotechnology. Solar cells, we're using nanotechnology. Whatever you look at it, these days, we are using a lot of nanotechnology.
Right.
Essentially, we are using small-scale structures in order to be able to improve the performance of most of the technologies which are at our disposal.
Right. And so it's, could you, so the way you took the example of a USB, so I'm trying to visualize it for our listeners, right?
Yeah.
If we were to make it easier to visualize, so in case of a mobile phone screen or, you know what I mean? So if we go from
Sure.
a mobile phone scale to the atomic scale, and visualize it for the listeners.
So,
it'll probably easier to.
Sure. So, for example, see the high resolution imaging, for example. We're able to get high resolution videos, for example. There are TV screens and all these things. We're talking about,
QLED
LED, QLEDs and all these things. QLED is a quantum LED.
Right.
Essentially, their quantum dots are there in LED. That means you end up getting a much brighter color. Basically, by changing the dimensions of this quantum dot, you can get different colors of light using the same material.
Right.
Which I cannot explain using classical physics, but by using quantum physics, I can explain that one, why that happens.
So, just a bit on that as well. So, what's happening is that when we look around in the world is driven by either classical Newtonian laws or Einstein's laws, or a combination of both at the wherever you're looking at, right? But what you're saying in the nano world, so when you go from what you can see physically to the microscopic or atomic scale, these laws change. They don't hold true anymore, right?
Absolutely.
So first of all, so what happens when we go to that scale in terms of the way material function itself? Are there any laws we know that, so how does the world behave at that scale?
Okay, the quantum mechanics we need to use rather than classical mechanics in order to be able to explain the physics at the nanoscale. So as I told you that these nanoparticles, if I'm changing the diameter of the nanoparticle using the same material.
What is a nanoparticle?
Nanoparticle is, for example, if you take, say for example, you got a ball, right? So then, cricket ball, for example, it's a solid ball. If I really make that into, instead of using a few centimeters of diameter or so, if I make into 2 nanometers, for example, so then its properties of the same material which I'm using there to here entirely changes.
Okay. Yeah.
So the things some materials which look, for example, gold, for example, I take. Gold, what is the color of gold, if you ask me? Well, people ask me, are you silly that you don't even know that what is the color of gold? And it's a yellowish color, right?
Gold color.
But if I take the gold and then into nanoscale, then the color of these nanoparticles changes quite significantly.
Okay, at that scale.
It could be pink color, orange color, and the color of this gold changes quite significantly.
Yeah.
How can I explain that one? I have to use quantum mechanics in order to be able to explain why the color of the gold changes when you go to nanoscale. In the same way, there are lots of semiconductors. Some of the semiconductors, they look grayish when you look in the bulk form, in a wafer form or so. But if they take the same material into nanoscale, they start emitting different colors of light.
Right.
For example, a red color or a blue color or a green color. If I really want to make, for example, QLED screen, for example, for TVs, that means, if I'm using different sizes of these same nanoparticles, they can emit different colors of light.
I see, okay.
That means they can give a very bright light emission as well. That means you can also, because they're a nanoscale, that means high resolution as well. So you can get a very high brightness, vivid colors by using quantum LEDs, for example.
Right.
Okay. The same nanoparticles, for example, I can use it to look at blockages in the arteries, for example. Okay. Because if you send these things, they are emitting such a bright light. If there's any blockages, you'll be able to see where the blockage is. For example, for medical applications.
Right.
Same nanotechnology can be used for sensors. For example, if you got a prostate cancer, and you got the prostate, surgery has taken place or so, but then you need to keep an eye on them, making sure that it's not come back. And the current technology is what people have to use it. You have to have enough cancer molecules in order to be able to detect it.
Right.
Cancer cells. But whereas if you go to nanoscale, you can be able to detect a single cancer cell at a time. So
okay. How are you doing that?
that means using these nanoscale sensors.
Imaging. Oh, okay, sensors.
Yeah, sensors.
Right.
So now I can see that I don't have to wait for 2 years or 3 years to see whether my prostate cancer has come back or not.
Yeah.
Even if I can able to detect at a single molecule level, that means I can be able to treat cancer much more efficiently, much earlier than before it becomes metastasized and then it's too late to really treat you, for example.
Right.
You can also do something called as a targeted drug delivery. You can really send these nanoparticles, functionalize them such that they go and only attach themselves to the cancer cells.
Okay.
And then you can have a polymer capsule in which you got the drug. You go and only really activate the drug when it go and attach itself a cancer cell. That means the amount of drug you're using is small. Also, it's not impacting the rest of the cells.
Right.
That means you get a lot of side effects are also much less as well, sort of thing.
Okay.
So the nanotechnology allows you to be able to do those sorts of things.
So targeted delivery.
Targeted drug delivery and looking at blockages in the arteries, for example, and also sensing the diseases at a much earlier stage. So that means you're able to treat people much early. So that means it can help people don't have to suffer through, and also that don't have to really put radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and all those things.
Yeah.
May not be that much necessary because of the fact that you're able to detect at a much early stage.
Yeah.
I work in nano lasers.
Right.
I can put about 20 lasers in the width of your hair. Why do I care about nano lasers? Smaller the lasers, you can switch them on and off faster. That means you can be able to send information much faster through optical fiber communications.
Right.
Because internet is dependent on optical fiber communications.
Right.
That means you're really converting your electrical signals from your phone or a computer into optical signals using lasers. And then you send through the optical fiber, and on the other end, you're converting that optical signal into electrical signal using something called photodetectors. So again, that means smaller these devices, faster you can send information, for example.
Yeah.
And again, if a smaller number of lasers, and they can pack more devices as well in the same space, because they consume less energy as well. Faster, smaller, more efficient, less energy consumption. All those things come into picture.
So at what stage, for I'm sure for different material, that stage would be different, but what stage does this transition happen from classical mechanics to quantum mechanics in terms of size? When you're looking at when you're going down the size, at what stage this transition happens?
So basically, you need to really go to 10 nanometer level or 20 nanometer level or so.
Right.
That's below that only there most of these quantum mechanics things come into picture.
Right.
And that is why I think precise control of these nanostructures becomes important as well. Because particularly if I want to make a laser particular color, for example, if I make these things too big, it may end up giving me a different color. If I make it small, it may end up giving me a different color. That's why the atomic precision at which you control these nanostructures becomes very important as well.
And so what's the tooling or instrumentation like? How you actually see your nanoparticle and then things that you build out of them? How do you see them and then work on it?
So the challenge is that smaller you scale you go to, the bigger the machines you have to deal with.
Right.
We use electron microscopes to be able to see these structures because of the fact that optical microscopes you're not able to see these structures, for example.
Yeah.
And so that means you go to electron microscopes and atom probe technologies and a range of different techniques that are available in the scanning tunneling microscope and atomic force microscope or so.
Right, so
these are the ones which are really used in order to be able to look at very advanced microscopy techniques, in order to be able to look at the atomic scale or so.
And then, so is there a way so at that scale, I understand particle behaves differently, right? It's particle or not, right?
Yeah.
It phases transitions, right? How do you catch it? How do you, when you want to see a particle, what are you doing actually to be able to see it? Are you freezing it, cooling it down, or how are you actually keeping it in?
Depends on what you're doing, and sometimes, for example, there's a colloidal nanoparticles, and by the way, the colloidal quantum dots, we call essentially colloidal nanocrystals. And colloid means you're really having these nanoparticles floating in the liquid. Okay. It could be water or some other solvent. Okay, so in fact that's the discovery of and development of these quantum dots had led to Nobel Prize in chemistry to scientists those who developed those ones, for example.
Right.
And so the interesting thing is that what you're doing is that you can embed them into a solid. You can put this put a droplet of this colloidal solution on a wafer, for example, and then they just spread themselves out and they just attach themselves. And then the liquid, whatever is there, a solvent, it dries up. Then they stay where they are.
Right.
Then you go and put it in a microscope and then see where they are, what's their size or so, and then excite them with the laser and look at what type of color of emission which they are producing or so something as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of precision engineering, and the measurements are also involved as well in these ones.
Yeah.
But sometimes we do something called, we make them to really, when you're making some layers of these materials, you can also embed them between different layers.
I see.
So also they are, and also stay stable there as well. So,
Okay.
so different technologies for different applications, we use them for different purposes as well.
So, Jagadish, at that level, how do you maintain consistency?
So that is where the so-called these atomic scale engineering comes into picture.
Yeah.
That is where these equipment which we really buy, and then they're very expensive equipment. And sometimes also you have to develop your own techniques to be able to study them as well, for example. So that's where I think, working with industry also you need to work with as well. Of course, during the last 20, 25 years also, lots of new techniques have been developed.
Yeah.
And then we are benefiting from by the way, interestingly, when we started nanotechnology, question is that, how do you measure them? Whether they are nanoparticles or nanowires or nanorods or whatever they are nanotubes. But again, that's where the techniques need to be developed as well. Measurement techniques need to be developed as well. The technology has gone fabrication and synthesis techniques, and then the analysis techniques both have grown hand in hand, leveraging on each other in order to be able to really reach where we have reached today.
Right.
Yeah.
And are there limits to that, how small you can get, right? So I reminded of there's plenty of room at the bottom, Feynman's comment.
That's
right.
That's right.
Are there limits?
So basically, you can really control them at the atomic level. The minute you want to go to subatomic level, it's a different story altogether.
Oh, okay.
Then you're talking about electrons, protons, and all these things. That's a quite different story.
Different story.
But atomic level, you're able to really do these things very well.
Yeah.
And even the people have made something like a single atom layers with no issues, but also single atom nanowires, for example, one atom next to each other or so.
Yeah.
Atomic level, we're able to control it very precisely using a wide variety of techniques also.
Yeah. And you mentioned nanowires. A lot of your work is on nanowires. Could you explain nanotech? Could you also tell a bit about what's a nanowire and its applications in general?
Yeah, okay. You know what is a wire. Wire is something where you got a cross section of the wire is smaller than the length of the wire. So in the same way, nanowire is also same, except that the cross section of this nanowire is in the nanoscale.
Nanoscale, okay.
Okay, 1 nanometer or 2 nanometers or 20 nanometers or 30 nanometers or so.
Yeah.
And then the length is typically about few microns long. Few microns means in about 1,000 times longer, more than the diameter, for example. Okay. So why are we interested in nanowires? Nanowires, we have been using nanowires to make lasers. Nanowires naturally form into a laser cavity.
Okay.
Because both ends of the nanowire act like mirrors, and then in the process, naturally nanowire forms as a laser cavity.
Oh, interesting.
Why it happens? Because there's a refractive index, we call it, is difference between the nanowire material and then the air is quite significant. That's why they end up light reflects back and forth. So that's how we're able to use nanowires for making lasers. That's how we're able to make wide variety of different colors of lasers for different applications. Infrared lasers to visible lasers also, we use different materials and different sizes also.
Yeah.
As I told you, the smaller the laser, they can be used for sensor applications and communications applications. Even in the future, it can be used for display applications as well.
Yeah.
Again, recently we're using nanowires for making sensors.
Right.
We're using breath sensors. So, for example, when somebody has got diabetes or ketosis, so what you end up when you measure the chemical composition of the breath, you can identify something called ketones. Acetone, for example, is one of the ketones. Acetone, by measuring the concentration of acetone, you can be able to tell the diabetes level of somebody, or who has got a ketosis or not. Ketosis is an advanced stage of diabetes, for example.
Yeah.
So again, instead of having to do the pin pricking and then have to really measure people, and which is not very convenient, to able to blood testing, able to from breath itself means it's a non-invasive and we're able to really measure that one, for example.
Yeah.
Most interestingly, in fact, my colleague, Professor Lan Fu, is leading this particular work. And then when we got a patent and then commercializing this technology, and then the people from the animal welfare groups have contacted us saying that they want to use this one to measure the diabetes and ketosis in pets.
Oh, pets. Okay.
Okay, because they go through a lot of difficulties as well.
Yeah.
But again, it's not convenient to do the pin pricking and then be able to measure the, the glucose levels in pets or so. Breath means it becomes much more convenient.
Right.
Again, in fact, when I was giving a talk at a conference in India, one of the American colleagues was asking me lots of questions, and afterwards he told me, then his son has got diabetes. If a breath sensor is able to measure his glucose levels, it becomes much easier for his life rather than have to do the pin pricking, for example. So say, for example, we're using nanowires for that example.
Right.
And again, we are using nanowires for solar cells, flexible solar cells. We embed these nanowires into a polymer material so that you can be able to make flexible solar cells.
Yeah. Wow.
And again, we're using these nanowires for a range of applications. Again, we're using them for photodetector applications. And so basically, the key thing is, Amit, that first and foremost, you need to get the basic science right. If you have the capacity to be able to engineer these atoms and to be able to precisely control these nanowires, for example, in terms of their diameter, their composition of what materials you got, what should be the length of the nanowires and the shape of the nanowires, then you can use them for a range of applications. So that's what makes it really fun.
Yeah.
So that's why the fundamental science or the basic science is most important. Once you get that one right, then you can go and find applications and then can lead to commercialization, for example. So that's why the full spectrum is very important. So sometimes, governments also focus too much on applications and want to really invest in applications. My advice and Academy's advice, the Australian Academy of Sciences advice, is that, we need to really fully fund research from the basic science to applied science to translation of technologies.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're missing out on in the future, because you may translate technologies, whatever is available now. Who is going to do the future research and what type of new discoveries you're going to get?
Yeah.
And that's why that capacity building and then doing the full spectrum of research is very important.
Yeah, that end-to-end cycle
Absolutely.
should be there.
Absolutely.
Jagadish, we have, I think, another 5 minutes or so. I wanted to go more in detail in the technical sort of work, but probably, hopefully, another time.
Sure.
Before we close, a couple of things, a couple of thoughts I wanted to... So where do you see next 10, 20 years of sort of nanotech space, and specifically what the work that you're doing? Where do you see that going, and also how much can that contribute to our society?
So the nanotechnology we're already using in the society,
It's
and
everywhere.
everywhere, whether you're phones or laptops to various
Televisions,
televisions and everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the next step, say for example, we are making some single photon sources and single photon detectors. The single photon sources and single photon detectors will be very important for quantum communications.
Right.
So the secure communications, quantum communications, are much more secure than current communications, for example. And so again, people have been using lots of this atomic engineering at making quantum computers, for example. Again, a lot of quantum technologies will be benefiting from the developments in nanotechnology in the next decade or so.
Right.
Quantum sensing, quantum communications, quantum cryptography, quantum computing or so. Quantum computing probably is will be much more longer term. Then quantum sensing, quantum communications, and other things probably is probably much more near term or so.
Right.
So that's where one area which we can really, so nanotechnology can make a huge contribution. And again, these days we are also looking at how can we make use of AI, artificial intelligence, in terms of doing science itself. How do we really use as a tool in order to be able to really fast track some of the measurements we're making, or otherwise, fabrications we're making or so. And again, even the simulations which we do in order to be able to understand the physics behind various devices or so. And artificial intelligence is going to play a very important role as well.
So how are we using AI in general? Are we designing taking help to design experiments? Or?
Mainly to design the experiments.
Right.
And again, also that AI will be able to really, based on what has already been done, and be able to do the look at and then see that, based on what's already been done, how can I make use of the knowledge which is available? How can I be able to make it a better nano laser or nano sensor or nano solar cell or so that can really help us as well, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But also sometimes in research, what we do, it is that, we end up doing, we got some idea. You do multiple experiments in order to be able to arrive at whether that idea is working or not.
Trial and error.
But that's probably, AI can help you to be able to fast track some of those things as well.
Right.
So that's why we're also working machine learning techniques, be able to design these things much more efficiently. And also that based on what has already been knowledge is there, be able to really suggest that probably the best option for you is this particular dimensions and this particular shape you need to make in order to be able to work or so sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that may fast track some of the work which we're doing, rather than having to do everything need to be done in the laboratory, for example.
Yeah.
So that may be helpful from that point of view as well.
Yeah.
So the opportunities are enormous, and again, again detection of the single molecules, which are a lot of work is going on, can also help in terms of So challenge with all these things is that selectivity and sensitivity both are very important.
Right.
So making sure that some sensitive but not selective. That means you're not be able to see, because sometimes in the lab we may look at only precisely in a particular thing, but when you're in the real world, you're looking at seeing your breath, lots of various chemical molecules are coming out. How do you make sure that they are not interfering with your measurement to make sure that you're measuring what you're hoping you're measuring? So again, all these things really becomes the thing that next generation technologies will allow us to be able to do that as well.
Right.
So,
At that scale, everything makes an effect.
Yeah, indeed.
Right. And last sort of thought, while sort of researching your work, one of the things I noticed in all of your presentations and some of your writings as well, you'd have these thoughts, these quotes, right? If you want to be happy, help others. There was another one in a presentation which said, I think it was an African proverb. What was it? If you want to go quick, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about that as we close, about that philosophy of yours in life.
Thanks, Amit. And then it's a pleasure of giving is much more than pleasure of receiving. And you have to pity people, those who have never experienced the pleasure of giving. So that's something, that's, means what makes you happy is that not about you. Making a difference in other people's lives makes us all happy. So that's why it is very important to encourage people to really think, just start experiencing the pleasure of giving.
Right.
You don't know, you'll never look back. But otherwise, if you're not doing that one, you don't know what you're missing out.
Right.
So there's pleasure. And in fact, social psychologists tell us as well, so then what makes us happy is not about accumulating more goods or more money or more widgets. It's more of what difference you're making in people's lives, and that's what makes us happy.
Yeah.
Again, in terms of gratitude, is very important in life. As I said, whenever I receive any award or anything, I express my gratitude to my high school teachers.
Yeah.
So without their help, probably I'll still be plowing the fields in India, for example. So
Yeah.
Again, the thing is that you may be brilliant in something, but you're only one person. How much you can do? You only got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That means it is impossible for you to do everything on your own. So that is why the team becomes very important. So that's why I had the pleasure of collaborating with people from 30 plus countries, to Scandinavia, to Brazil and South Africa, to China, India, and UK, US, Netherlands, and Italy, Germany, and various parts of the world, and Japan and Korea. Because the fun is that working with others, you learn from each other.
Yeah.
That way, that learning is the most fun part of it. Because if you think that you know everything, and you lost the plot. So that is why it is important to be open-minded and willing to learn other points of view. The listening skills are very important in life.
Yeah.
And so, as wise people say that means you got one mouth and 2 ears, you should use mouth less and then use ears more.
Yes.
But unfortunately, all of us have the tendency to talk more and listen less.
Yeah.
And that's why it is very important to learn to listen to understand, not just to listen to respond.
Right.
Try to understand other person's point of view. But again, by collaborating with people, for example, we are using our nanotechnology and nanowires in neuroscience these days. Trying to understand how the dementia works and how to really help people with the dementia or so, Alzheimer's disease or so. And again, learning, working with stem cell biologists, neurobiologists, computer scientists, and us, that means you're always learning something new.
Very interesting.
And again, also even understanding others' language. We may be using the same words, but the meaning may be entirely different.
Yeah.
So that is why it is important to really try to understand other people's perspectives and what they mean by when you say something. That's why the working in multidisciplinary fields really allows you to continue to learn. For me, learning has been the great fun part of life. Because if you stop learning, I think you deteriorate very quickly mentally.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say that I am a lifelong student.
Yeah.
And I would like to learn all the time. So in fact, interestingly, that when I go to conferences, I talk to senior professors and scientists briefly.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I talk to the students and postdocs or so. You learn a lot from them. What are the challenges which they are facing, and also learn about what actually working and what's not working, because they are in the lab. They know more about the actual research, what's happening, than senior people, because most of the senior people, more senior you become, less time you have being in the lab. So that is why you need to have the good team of people, bright young people, and inspire them and encourage them and create right opportunities for them. And in the process, it's a win-win for everybody, sort of thing. So that's why working together is always fun. And also that, again, we always need to look at, instead of asking what that person will do for me, you always look at what I can do to this person. That is why my collaborations have lasted for 30 plus years. Reason being that you never look at in your own way, what can you do together? What can we do together? So then when you have that sort of mindset, you can achieve much more. So that's why for me it's been a great fun. And I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful opportunity to work with so many wonderful people from various parts of the world. It's been, I enjoyed what I do, and I continue to do.
Yeah, fun talking to you, Jagadish. I hope we sit together again and talk more detail about the technical stuff. But this has been fun. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Amit. It's been a pleasure. Thanks very much. Good luck to you.
Thank you.